This is the video we're going to continue talking about how to mix a wide range of colors using a full color palette. So in our first project, we were mixing all grays, and we were using achromatic grays or actual grays. We were using combinations and varying quantities of white and black and figuring out all the different grays we could make between them. Only two variables. And the only visual element that was really changing with each color was value. It's the only element. And so in doing that, we're able to get a really wide range of values and tones and render depth and the illusion of space. What we're going to begin working on now is much more of a challenge. And this is something that I always teach, and some other painting professors don't teach quite as much. And that is this notion of a chromatic gray. So a chromatic gray is one that involves many hues. In fact, it's going to involve probably every color, or almost all of your colors on your palette. We mix a chromatic gray not by using black and white. In fact, we won't use any black at all. Look, there's nothing on the palette for black. Okay, where it would ordinarily go, I've removed it. You mix it based on lots of different colors, but you have to use your knowledge of color theory to kind of change the intensity, right? And bring it into a middle tone while also causing it to not read as a distinct hue. It has to be super, super neutral. It of course involves value, because if we're mixing a chromatic gray, that means we don't want something that's very dark, we don't want something that's very light, we want something that's right in the middle. That is, if we were to take a black and white photograph of this full color painting, and we had used a chromatic gray, then that chromatic gray on the black and white photograph would look like a perfect middle tone gray, right in the middle between black and white. But as we're mixing a chromatic gray, we're also having to change and deal with hue. We also get to utilize and control temperature as other elements of color. So this is really, really exciting. That means that when we're mixing a chromatic gray, there are lots of variables. So that means that gray is no longer just one thing. It's no longer just like one stop on a value scale. There are an infinite number of grays that we could possibly mix. Okay, this image right here, this is a demo painting from last semester's painting 1. Okay, and so you can see even here, so no black was used in any of these, right? And yet I don't have a whole lot of bright colors. If we look at this quote-unquote white sheet of paper, you know, this color here has no actual gray in it. So there's white in it, but there's no black, as is this one, as is this one. Okay, the white object here, this cube, here we go. So you can see, like, I'm registering differences even within one shape of value, one shape of light, based on warmth and relative coolness. Okay, so it actually gives you a lot of power when we're using chromatic grays, a lot of power, a lot of communicative potential, to not just, you know, assume that because something is neutral and somewhere in the middle of the value scale that it's gray, right? That's just one thing. So how in the world do we mix a chromatic gray from all of these bright colors? So I'm going to do this as a demonstration, and then y'all will be able to do this for part of your homework. Okay, so your first goal will be, sorry for all the moving around, your first goal will be to mix a chromatic gray. So my demonstration, you can start with any color, any color. And we've only got pure colors. You may not start with white. Cross that out. White will be the last color that you mix into the pile of paint. Okay? So let's see, just for funsies, we'll start with cadmium red light. That's one of the most intense colors. As y'all remember, it's also, the cadmium colors are toxic. Ha. So we start this demo with a bang. Got a little bit too much. It also has a really strong tinting strength, a really high tinting strength. So a little goes a long way with cadmium red light. Okay, so if I am to make a gray, and this is my starting point, this is so not a neutral, right? So when I really say gray, I mean it's a neutral. So what would I need to do to this super intense red light? It's almost like an orange. Well, we need to call upon our knowledge of the color wheel. And I'm providing y'all on Blackboard with a digital color wheel. You can click on that file and with some relationships defined on it. So what I need to do is figure out what color is most opposite to this cadmium red light. So this cadmium red light, I've got to analyze this. It's not really that red. I mean, maybe it reads like a light red, but it reads closer, I think, to like an orange or a red orange. Okay, so it's a very warm red or a slightly redder orange. So what would I mix in with that? What would be the complement or opposite color to orange? Would totally be blue, right? Okay, it's opposite on the color wheel. Now, if that just like caused you to have a little, a brain fart, then pause this, go back to the color wheel file, and look at those relationships, okay? You're gonna need to memorize those, and those are gonna be something that you use every single time that you sit down to mix paint. So to this orange, I could choose one of these blues, okay? Cerulean blue or ultramarine blue. Okay, you can just kind of go with your gut. I happen to know if I mix cerulean blue with this, it's not going to get neutral. So I'm going to do ultramarine blue just for the heck of it. Don't worry about the value of your color right now, like how light or dark it is. You'll adjust that later. So I'm going to mix in that blue. Now, something interesting with complementary color relationships. Hopefully you will remember this from basic design and color theory. When we place two opposite colors side by side, like this blue and that orange, they actually enhance each other's intensity. They kind of pump each other up, right? They're opposing forces. They kind of magnify their own individual qualities. It's called simultaneous contrast. They're playing out the differences in each other because there's nothing in this orange that has anything to do with this blue. There is no component of this blue that comes from orange, okay? But when we mix them together, let me get this, set this to the side. When we mix them together, okay, they neutralize each other. They also get very dark. So if you're having trouble seeing what color you end up with, like the hue, the temperature, the intensity, because the paint is too dark, then I suggest just kind of slide it down a little bit on your palette and you can see. So this did not make a perfect neutral. It neutralized it, right? So your challenge, your next step, is to figure out what is the closest hue to what this turned into. Like, what does this look like in terms of the hues on the color wheel? Now for your assignment, you're going to be mixing your own your own chromatic gray. And what I want you to do is take a photograph of every single step in your color mixing. So if I were doing this for your homework, for my homework for this class, I would take a photograph of this, okay, before adding another color. Let's see. So this to me looks like really purpley. I don't know if y'all feel the same way. I think it looks really purpley, okay? And so then how do I neutralize a purple? Okay, the opposite or complement of purple is, or violet, is going to be a yellow, right? So then thinking about which yellow to choose that is most different than this purple. You can rationalize this however you want to. At the end of the day, sometimes you just got to take a stab at it, right? So what I'm going to do, let's just see how this cadmium red light does. Okay. Again, if I were to hold this swatch of paint right beside this purple without letting them mix, okay, notice how the yellow seems even brighter than it was, and the purple probably seems even more saturated, even more intense. Okay, but when we mix them together, these two opposites, it gets more neutral. That is unexpected. Look, let's see, it's almost kind of like greenish. Okay, I definitely got more neutral. It looks like it's kind of a warm brown now. Can y'all see that? It's so interesting. A warm kind of brown. So what I want you to strive for in this mixing exercise is to get the most neutral color you possibly can. Maybe we'll even have a contest. Who gets the most neutral of neutrals? Neutral meaning the color that you mix looks absolutely nothing like any of the hues. If I had to decide, is it, orange or green or red or blue, there's no way I could decide. It's equally close to all hues, so it's far from all. So to me, this looks like it's kind of a warm brown. Now, if I can see that this is warm or cool, if I can kind of gauge a relative temperature, then it's not quite neutral enough. So if it's this kind of warm neutral, it's actually looking a lot like, look, one of your browns. Specifically the umber color. This is the raw umber. So if it's looking like a brown, that's kind of in the kind of orangey zone. So if this is kind of closest to orange on the color wheel, what would I mix with it? I would mix a blue, because orange and blue are opposites or complements. So let's see, I could use this ultramarine blue, has a little bit, it's a little bit closer to the violet side, and cerulean blue, which is a little bit closer to the green side. So I actually think this is kind of like, I don't know, I feel like there's like some yellowishness to this brown. It's kind of warm in terms of its yellow. So if I go more towards green, I'm going to pull in a little bit more kind of yellowishness if I've used this blue that's closest to the green. Okay, and that's going to kind of push it even more warm probably. This ultramarine blue, even though I've placed it in the warmer position on the palette, because it's closer to red or violet, okay, it's actually going in the opposite direction of any yellowishness, okay, or warmth that is in this brown. So I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna do the ultramarine blue. Remember, I used that a little bit earlier too. So let's mix that in. So as a reminder, what you would do is take a photograph with every color you mix. Mix it up really, really well. Spread it out. I think we're getting closer. Is it cool? Is it warm? It's still a little bit warm. It still looks kind of brownish to me. If it's looking brown, it's neutral, but it's still a little too close to the orange hue. Mix a little bit more of that ultramarine blue. See if I can push it a little bit more. I think I've got something.